I'd like to start with a question to Mr. McClinican, follow on to the testimony that Ms. Curta just gave. Um, this committee and the veterans who we are here to support, needs to know that the VA has a plan to manage this inventory. And you've spoken and alluded to increased capacity, and even in our prior conversation, a record number of exams being conducted last week and more recently. But do you have a definitive written plan, as has been recommended by OIG and GAO, that has been drafted that lays out how you're going to accomplish this, both within the VA and to set the expectations of the contract examiners who are a critical part of this process?
Thank you. So as far as a written plan on the takedown of the inventory, we have worked very closely with the vendors, each of our 3 vendors. We established a goal for them to achieve what we've been discussing here, which is returning to a normal working inventory by a date certain. And initially this was done in September. I think, as we all know, the pandemic conditions changed after that, in fact, got worse. So this planning that we're discussing is occurring in a very challenging period of time. There's a lot of unknown variables. I would love to do ordinary business planning and forecast out when certain events would happen and when we can achieve the goal. But I think my point is that simply stating that we need a plan for when exactly certain events will happen between now and the goal that we've established is a very difficult thing to do during the pandemic. Nonetheless, each of our vendors know how much capacity they need to add. I think it was Mr. Nels who mentioned 40,000. It's my expectation that they get to 45,000 and beyond. 40,000.
Can I pause there? Because what we're talking about is about 210,000 additional exams above and beyond the normal workload that would have to be worked down on rough timeline between now and the end of the fiscal year, about 7 months or a little bit less. So you're going to need to do 30,000 additional exams per month above and beyond what you do in your normal workload. And I understand that it's a complex environment and it's always changing, but without a baseline plan of how you're going to accomplish an additional 30,000 above the routine amount that you have to do, how are you gauging whether you're going to meet that timeline, and how are we going to communicate the expectation to veterans if we foresee that we're not going to meet that timeline?
Anytime we do a takedown of inventory, and this is unfortunately fairly routine business, whenever our claim inventory increases, we have the same situation. We establish a goal, we know what our receipts are. In this case, we're not taking down simply a fixed inventory of 212,000 exams. We have monthly receipts exceeding 30,000 that we get every single month. So what we need to do is we need to increase our capacity above the receipt level at a high enough volume to drive down the inventory by the goal.
So that's exactly what I was alluding to. I mean, if we have an excess of 210,000, i.e. we're at a 350,000 roughly backlog, you maintain 140,000 in a working pool. So the 210 is the delta that you got to work down to get to the normal level. So I understand there's always new exams being requested and coming in. So it's still, I do still agree with the OIG and GAO's recommendation that there should be a written plan. You can always use the plan as a planning tool to deviate from, but I think a written plan would help all of the stakeholders and the veterans, understand the timeline for reducing this backlog. And the time remaining, I just wanted to also turn to Mr. Matthew and talk about the VHA and what support the VHA can help provide to the contract examiners that are conducting the majority of the exams. Is there any additional capacity there that can help whittle down this excess number of exams that are pending in the queue?
Good morning, Chair Luria. Thank you for the question. VHA is working very hard with our facilities to determine what capacity or what additional capacity that we can support Dave and the VBA with. At this time, many of the VHA staff are reassigned to doing many clinical activities or healthcare delivery activities like vaccination clinics and other types of things. So we're working with them to determine what they can actually get as far as capacity. So we are sharing that information as we get it by site with Dave and his team. And we're optimistic that we can free up some additional capacity to help with this effort.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Matthew, and we would love, an updated forecast on the VHA, part as we move forward and being able to help contribute to cutting this backlog. My time has expired, so I'll now recognize Ranking Member Nels for 5 minutes.